Okay, so we're diving into a story today that I gotta admit has me scratching my head a little
Mhm.
bit.
Yeah.
We're talking Diddy, we're talking TD Jakes, two names you don't usually hear in the same sentence, let alone the same lawsuit.
Yeah, you're not imagining things. It is definitely an interesting pairing, to say the least.
And the accusations are heavy, to put it mildly.
Definitely. We're talking about sex trafficking allegations, which obviously are incredibly serious. And to see both Sean Diddy Combs, the music icon, and T.D. Jakes, the influential pastor, even mentioned in this context, it's definitely raising a lot of eyebrows.
So before we get too far into it, let's lay it all out for our listeners. We're looking at this news article. It's in Spanish, by the way, and it's called Texto Pegado.
Right. And it's important to note that this article is where a lot of this information is coming from.
Exactly. So our mission here, and this is for everyone tuning in, is to really break down what we know so far about this lawsuit, try to understand what it could mean, and most importantly, talk about why it even matters.
Because it does, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, just the fact that we're having this conversation shows that this case touches on bigger issues. Celebrity, responsibility, public perception, you name it.
Okay, so you're telling me Diddy and TD Jakes are named in the same lawsuit. This isn't your average celebrity gossip column fodder, is it? Let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here is that we have these two massively influential figures. Sean Diddy Combs, a huge name in the music industry, and he's being sued in a case related to sex trafficking. And on top of that, T.D. Jakes, who a lot of people know he's a pastor, leads a megachurch, also gets pulled into this. It's the combination of who they are and what they represent that makes it so notable.
Now, the article we're looking at, it doesn't exactly paint a clear picture of TD Jakes' involvement, does it?
It really doesn't. And to be crystal clear, there's nothing directly linking T.D. Jakes to the accusations against Diddy. The connection seems to be through others involved in the case, at least from what we can gather. But even being in the same orbit as this kind of controversy, it's bound to get people talking, speculating.
It's a PR nightmare, basically, especially for someone like TD Jakes, right? His entire ministry is built on this foundation of faith, moral leadership. To have his name even whispered in this context, it's got to be a concern.
It's a prime example of how quickly public perception can shift. One day you're held up as a role model, and the next you're facing serious questions. And it just highlights that immense weight that comes with fame, with being a leader.
And Diddy's no stranger to controversy himself. But these accusations, those are in a whole different league. The article did say his lawyers are denying everything, right?
Right.
Which, I mean, is usually the first move in these situations.
Right. Pretty standard legal playbook there. But you mentioned something interesting, T.D. Jakes and his team. Total radio silence, no official statement, no comment, nothing. And sometimes saying nothing speaks volumes, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. It makes you wonder what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Are they strategizing, waiting to see how it plays out?
It'll be really interesting to see how this all unfolds. This could have huge ramifications for the Potter's house, his congregation, his whole image. And in this day and age, with social media blowing up every story, it's hard to escape the court of public opinion.
Exactly. So we've got Diddy denying everything, his team's probably lawyering up, and then we got TD Jakes.
Mm.
Well, we don't know what he's doing, which might be the story in itself.
And this is where it gets even more complicated. Because we have to ask ourselves, what are we expecting from these public figures? Are we putting them on a pedestal, expecting them to be morally perfect? Which, let's be honest, is an impossible standard.
It's a really good question. Do we, as a society, hold celebrities and influential figures to a different standard?
Mm.
And is that fair?
Think about it. We've seen this time and time again throughout history, haven't we? Politicians, athletes, even religious leaders, they all get caught up in these scandals. And the court of public opinion, it can be brutal. People are quick to judge, often forgetting that these figures are human, just as flawed as anyone else.
And let's not forget, we're in the age of social media now. Information or misinformation spreads like wildfire. Even if someone is later proven innocent, the damage to their reputation can be irreversible.
Absolutely. One tweet, one viral video, and your whole life can change. This case is just a stark reminder of how fragile our reputations are in the digital age.
So where do we go from here? We've got this lawsuit, some very serious allegations, and two very different public figures caught in the middle of it all. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we need to be careful about jumping to conclusions. Right now, these are just accusations. We need to let the legal process play out. But regardless of the outcome, this case has sparked a much-needed conversation about the nature of fame, the burden of responsibility, and the power of public perception in the 21st century. It's a story that's far from over.
It definitely makes you think. And for our listeners, we want to hear from you. How do you think this case will play out? What are your thoughts on the bigger issues it raises? Let us know in the comments, because this is a conversation that deserves more than just our 2 cents.